Okay, guys, week 7. You have finished your ASB project, hopefully, or turning it in very soon. Most of you have already done it. And you're working on your final project. And some of you have emailed me about questions about that. So I don't care what format you do it in. You could either do it in a PowerPoint presentation, you can do it as a paper. Either one of those two methods are good, as long as I get the information that I need. So you're analyzing that budget, finding out if that's exactly how the money should be spent, or if it's a good way to spend the money. If it's not, and why, what data do you have to show that it's a good use of money? And then if it's not, what would you suggest instead? Okay, so you're working on that and getting that done. We're almost done. Some of you have presentations next week, and we're looking forward to hearing those. This week we're going to read about maintenance and operation and child nutrition. Maintenance and operation is a big darn deal. It's going to take a lot of your budget. Salaries always take the most, but it's probably your second biggest expense is maintenance and operations. The standard for maintenance and operation is 3% of the replacement value of your school should be on maintenance and operation, and 2% of replacement cost should be on capital renewal. And I know that many of us do not spend that money because we just don't have it. Maintenance and operation is not funded very well. I know that through LCFF, we've gotten a lot more money for instruction and salaries and those kind of things, but school maintenance and operations has not been funded well. There is going to be a bond measure coming out, and a lot of people are for it. It will be $9 billion more. Right now, school facilities has about $35 billion. And you think, wow, that's a lot of money. But it's not enough in California. We have a lot of old schools, a lot of schools with asbestos, things that need to be replaced. Children are hard on a building. Anybody that's a parent will tell you that children are hard on equipment and buildings. And when you have, hundreds of them in one place, you have to replace things. You have to replace water coolers, and you have to replace heating and air conditioning, because you can't live, well, at least where I am, you can't live without air conditioning. You've got to have it. It's 107 here today. You've got to have air conditioning. So making sure that those things are kept up for a CBO is a lot of work. If you're building a school, even more. But making sure that you're meeting regularly with your maintenance and operation people, and that they have the things that they need to do their job. It's one of the things you'll spend the most time on, because it takes that much time to do it. Food programs. Now, we already had a presentation that was excellent on food programs. Most food programs started about World War I, when they saw that the soldiers coming in did not have good nutritional. They were malnourished, and they thought, we can't have a population that's malnourished. And so a lot of programs started in the 1930s and 40s across the nation. Some of them started before that because they saw there was a need, but most of them started then. We do know that there's been changes in the nutritional standards, kind of championed by Michelle Obama, which is a good thing, and they want fruit and vegetable at every meal, whole grain, low fat in milk and in foods, and that's good. And they gave us 6 cents more per meal, which in some places may be enough, but in California it's not. And so our food programs sometimes are struggling. I know that there's a push by the Teamsters. I have a friend who's in school nutrition, and he says there's a push by the Teamsters union to say you can't buy anything from a processing plant unless they're unionized. This just cost LA Unified about $6 million more for their mills, because they finally caved to the unions and said, okay, we'll do it. So it's something that's kind of coming down, that push for unionized products coming into our school nutrition program. I'm not sure it's the best thing for our kids, because it costs a lot more. I understand wanting to pay people a fair wage, but when the bottom line is you got to pay kids, and you got to feed kids, and this is how much money you have, sometimes you got to cut corners on not the food product, but how it's prepared, and maybe the cost of what people are getting. So, it's one of those balancing acts that we have to do as CBOs. How much, same thing you do at home. What can you get for the best budget for your family? You still want them to eat well, but you also don't want to pay too much for your food either. There are some school districts that are doing some really creative things. My school district is not one of them. But the neighboring one does a really great school breakfast program where they feed every single kid, regardless of whether they can pay or not. Every kid gets a free breakfast. And I asked the guy that's in charge of that program, how are you doing that? And he said, well, we weren't having enough kids eat breakfast that qualified. And so by giving everybody breakfast, they can charge the state and the national government for the breakfast they do serve, and they get enough money to pay for the other ones. So kind of a nice win-win. Everybody gets breakfast at school. Every kid gets to eat, and they're not hungry, and the child nutrition department is getting enough money. They do the same thing with. They have another program where they have, like, if children don't want something, I know how you have a share table where they can share like an apple or something. Well, he has even more, where they've partnered with homeless shelters, and they have a refrigerator in their cafeteria, and if after the share table there's still food on it, they can put it in this refrigerator, and once or twice a week the homeless shelters comes and gets that food, and it goes to the homeless shelter and back into the community, which I think is a fabulous idea. I talked to my child nutrition people, and no, that's against the law. I'm like, no, it's not. They're doing it right over there. So if you can get your people to be a little bit more creative, I know in this school district they also charge adults for lunch, and so they have like wraps and salads, and they bring them to the district office. They bring them to schools. You order the meal ahead of time, and they bring it to you the next day. This is making them money. He has more money than he knows what to do with in his child nutrition program, whereas everybody else in the valley is struggling. So sometimes those creative thinkers, as long as they're within the law, can really do a lot for programs that maybe you hadn't thought about before trying. So I'm kind of pushing my girls to try it. We'll see if I can get them on board. I really want that homeless shelter when we come, because we have a great deal of our kids are homeless, and it would just go back to feeding them and their families, which would be a great thing for our neighborhoods. All right, guys. So questions, email me. You're almost done. Doing a great job on the discussion boards. Remember, a minimum of 2 posts. Some of you are I know it's the end and you're getting tired, but just make sure you're posting at least 2 times. And you notice I've given you extra credit if you do more than that. All right, guys. Have a great week.